Hopefully Lydia can get back in, otherwise we've got a problem.
Hi, I agreed. Cool. I'll just get my screen ready.
First of all, thank you for joining us and giving us a talk. It's really good for the team to have these with different people who are doing work on different species in the Gulf. So thank you, and we'll listen to what you have to say and ask any questions if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. First off, before I get started, how many people saw the talk last year? Just so I know, are people new or yeah. So I've got some. Yeah, right. Awesome.
Yeah, Brittany and Tony are new.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, so there's a little bit of crossover, but basically the talk I've done, it kind of provides an overview and then gives some cool updates as well. So there's something in it for everybody.
Excellent.
Okay. All right, I'll just share. Just wanting to double check, can everyone see that? Can you see the PowerPoint?
Yes, we can.
Yes. Perfect. Wonderful. Okay, guys. Kia ora koutou. Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about Manta Watch New Zealand and the mahi that we're doing. So yeah, as I mentioned, I'll be giving a bit of an overview about the species and then some really cool project updates. All right, so just first off, just a little bit of background on the species that we're studying. So we focus on mobulid rays, so they are manta and devil rays. And we have two species known in New Zealand waters. And so we have the spine-tailed devil ray, which is the largest of the 8 species of devil ray that we have in our oceans. And we also have the oceanic manta ray, and this is the largest ray in the world. So mobulid rays, they're a little bit different to our coastal ray species. Eagle rays are actually the most closely related to mobulid rays, and stingrays are their own different bag. But you can see they look quite different. The main things are that these guys are ocean wanderers. They're filter feeders, so you'll see them feeding on krill and small bait fish, as opposed to crunchy stuff. So they swim through their prey, and their mouths are positioned at the front as opposed to underneath. One of the big things about these guys is that they're both globally endangered species, and because of their ocean wandering nature, and because they associate with bait balls and really productive areas, they do have negative interactions with commercial and recreational fisheries. And they're one of the most sharks and rays generally, they have quite conservative life histories. But these guys, yeah, very conservative. And so they just makes them extremely vulnerable to any form of exploitation. We're going to be focusing on the oceanic manta ray today. So this is the species that we've put a lot of effort in so far. So yeah, Te Whairahi is the indigenous name, and then the Latin name is Mobula birostris. And we have a dorsal and ventral view, so we can see the top one there. So we measure mantas via disc width, so that's tip to tip, as that lovely orange arrow shows you. This also, one of the key things with mobulid rays is that they have cephalic fins or head fins, and that's how they funnel their prey. And a cool thing with mantas as well is that they don't have any stinger. So unlike other ray species, their strategy for protection is being really big, a little bit scary, and very fast. And then on that the ventral side, so the underneath side, you can kind of see where the gills are there. And then a really awesome research tool for us is the fact that each manta ray has a unique spot pattern on their belly. And so that enables us to capture photo IDs and build a catalogue and really get to know the different populations around the world. Speaking of which, manta have what we call a circumglobular distribution. So we find them all the way around the world between certain latitudes. And so you'll see Aotearoa there in the bottom corner. And so we're actually at the most southern point of oceanic manta rays kind of population range. And so it's really cool for us because we get to see lots of different behaviors and strategies that you wouldn't necessarily see in the tropics. All of the research that we're doing is kind of super, super new. But yeah, it just adds that extra layer of like we're really treading on new ground. Cool. So a little bit about who we are and what we do. So, Manta Watch New Zealand was formed in 2017, and we became a charitable trust in 2020. And our mission is to foster knowledge of and advocacy for Aotearoa's oceanic ecosystems through research, conservation, education, and collaboration. Basically, we just want to work with everybody and we want to save the ocean by connecting people to it. So yeah, and that really has resonated in our values. So it's all about environmental stewardship, community, and advocacy. And our vision is a sustainable future for manta and devil rays. And that's all about healthy oceans and ecosystems and us all thriving together. And we can kind of narrow that down a little bit more into our goals. So we really want to increase ocean protection through manta ray research and conservation. So I see manta rays as a lower hanging fruit. So they're a big, majestic animal. People just get obsessed with them, and yeah, they're the gateway drug to wider marine protection and conservation. So we're really wanting to use manta not only in a way of to protect the globally endangered species, but to protect ecosystem wide, just ocean basins. We're really wanting to raise the public profile nationally for manta as well, because so many Kiwis don't even know that we have manta rays in New Zealand. And then we're really wanting to put Aotearoa on the map as a significant place for manta. And then, yeah, constantly building and engaging our community so they can advocate for healthy oceans. Cool. So how are we going to do that? So we need to find out heaps about manta and share it and get everybody excited. So we have some key research questions that we're chipping away at. Mainly, we want to find out are mantas here all year round? Do they migrate? And how are they using our waters? So if they are migrating, are they connected to anywhere else? How big's the population? How's it structured? Just generally how they're using these waters. And then also, do they have any threats here? So we basically want to find out everything. This is a little compilation that kind of sums up our actions to try and answer those questions. So we're constantly trying to gather as much biological data on mantas as possible. So collectively, as a population, and then individual mantas as well through our ID databases, we're finding out more about where they're going and when, and how they're using those areas. So we're using satellite tags as well as a way of really speeding up that understanding. New projects, dorsal IDs as well. So we've realized that the markings on a manta's head are the same as in terms of they're individual to that species. So it's a really useful way to get information if we can't get the belly spots. We're wanting to look at cleaning stations to see if we have cleaning stations in New Zealand. And we're, as of this season, going to be launching a sightings app that I'll go into a little bit later on, and our own marine education program. And all of those goals, kind of going back to the previous slide, we're wanting to get long-term conservation management and ecosystem and site-specific protections as a result of this work. And at the same time, upgrade the New Zealand threat classification for manta. So from those previous slides, we showed they're globally endangered, and in New Zealand, they're currently data deficient, and that means that we just simply don't have enough information to provide recommendations of how to protect this species at this stage. Cool, so how do we do all this? So when we're out in the field, it's all about videos. So our data is collected through drones and underwater photography. So we're collecting gender, behavior, injuries. If we can get IDs, that's awesome. And then associated marine life. So we're really wanting to suss out where mantas fit in our marine ecosystems. The geolocation and environmental variables, and that's also one of the ways that we can kind of start to crack the manta code. So temperature is really important as well. So it enables us to get better at finding manta during the season. And then, as I mentioned, satellite tagging helps us better understand the horizontal and vertical behaviors of manta, and relating that to both localized and migratory movements. So this is a little snapshot of as in the field. This was season 1. So we learned a lot of things during the first season. The main one was that these guys are really fast and we needed to up our game. So yeah, you can kind of, this one, you can kind of see she got tagged. There's a little shiny thing there on her right-hand wing. And we were getting some nice biological data from her. And this is kind of what in the field looks like now. So Mark on the left-hand side there, he's a project tagger and one of our senior science advisors. And he goes around the world tagging lots of shark and ray species. And you can see there's a little picture of me holding the drone. And then this is a little snapshot from a classic day in the Gulf when the wind doesn't blow, which we have to optimize. And then we get in the water as well, and then get some really good data from underwater. So we use GoPros primarily for this. So there's a really nice dorsal ID there. And then something that we can't get with drone all the time is to suss out whether the females are pregnant or not. So we like to get in when we can. Another massive aspect of the project is our beautiful, amazing citizen science network. So this is a little bit of a snapshot of the kind of imagery that we get and the research techniques conducted by the general public. The one I love just like the picture on like that top right-hand corner. It shows you how massive these animals are. And that was a courtship event. And when mantas are getting romantic, they're really interactive. And the female will actively put herself in between, put anything between her and the male. So if you happen to be in the water, then yeah, you can kind of get involved in a kind of weird way. But anyway, the main point of this is that over 70% of all of our verified sightings, so this is a national project, come from the general public, aka our citizen science network. So it just massively builds our capacity and increases our learning, and it's so important. And yeah, you guys are a massive part of that as well. And so it's just kind of hammering in how critical this mahi is. So get all the information together, and what do we have? So yeah, we're getting better and better collectively at finding and collecting data on manta rays. So this year just gone has been huge. So that December 23 to now-ish. So like that our 4th dedicated season of survey was our biggest yet. And now we're averaging kind of between 250 and over 300 manta ray sightings per season. And total sightings at this stage are just over 1,200. Most of those sightings have been within the last 3 years. And so that's just testament of how the project's grown, but then also when we're out, we're getting a lot better too. How that's broken down. So if we have a look at our little sightings map to the left, general sightings, we're getting more females than males and a fair few unsexed, just because the verification doesn't necessarily show gender. And then if we look at the other pie chart on the other side, it's really clear how they're using our waters. So feeding just is the massive majority there. So yeah, they're coming into our waters and having a good bit of kai there. And then as you can see from the bottom one, we're fastly approaching peak manta season. So the more survey effort, the more mantas we find. This nice little peak here will go into a curve, but at the moment, yeah, kind of that December through till March is our peak manta season. And this is a cute little video showing you mantas feeding. So in the Gulf, we see them feeding on krill a lot. And you'll be able to see the little sparkly bit on the surface, and that's the krill actually jumping out the water to try and get away from the manta. A big part of our research as well is learning more about krill because they underpin our entire food webs. This one is a species distribution model. So I guess another part of our research is because we're based heavily in the Gulf, we're wanting to really test that bias of, hey, is the Gulf significant to manta, or is it just because this is where we're doing a lot of our mahi? So one of our master's students a couple of years ago did it. She basically took all the variables that are good for oceanic manta rays, shot them into a complicated modeling system, and then created this map. And basically, it just shows us that all those variables that are detrimental for manta, the Gulf is actually a really sweet spot for them. And so it's nice and productive, it's shallow, and it's filled with food. And it also interestingly showed us that we have a couple of other areas that, as we're moving through our project and are able to grow and start concentrating surveys in other areas, we'll be able to be looking at those West Coast options as well. And yeah, just to show you what a little food party looks like. So this was just out from Great Barrier. And we do get a few a few little mini food parties where there's some big balls of krill. But you can just see the size difference between these three females. Yeah, that one that just went was huge. And so yeah, these guys will just keep gorging and gorging until the food's gone. So in this kind of situation, we're just trying to get the drone over all of them at the right time to get those all important photo IDs. So yeah, talking about photo IDs, so that's kind of, I was just speaking kind of broadly in terms of population, but to learn loads more, we need to really dive into individual data. So this is gender, if it's females, pregnancies, all that kind of stuff, and that can really help us, particularly in conservation management space. And so we're currently sitting at 206 photo IDs now. And we have a huge gender bias for female. So 71% of all photo ID'd animals have been female. And a lot of those are in the latter stages of pregnancy as well. So that gives us a really clear indication that not only are our waters amazing for kai, but this is an area where pregnant females come, and hopefully they're giving birth in our waters. And then that little graph on the right-hand side just shows you that we've got way better at getting IDs. And so once we get an animal into our ID database, then we can track that animal over time. So if we're getting manta measurements, we can learn about maturity and growth rates. If an animal is injured, then we can track the healing. In terms of pregnancy, we can find out whether these females are pregnant multiple years in a row. It's just all we just have to get out there and keep collecting this data so we can kind of build a bigger picture. And then that bottom little picture just shows you kind of what the dorsal ventral database looks like. So ideally, we get a really clear image of the belly spots as well as the head. And then if you get to find a manta that isn't in the database, like this lovely little lady, then as citizen scientists, you get to name your beautiful manta. I just wanted to show you that like when we're getting IDs, it's not always in crystal clear blue water. It can be a little bit scary and a bit green sometimes. And here's some of our examples of really awesome dorsal IDs. So we have 3 color morphs for manta. These are all what we call chevrons. So this is like the classic color coding. We also have leucistic that are a lot lighter, and then melanistic that are a lot darker. So the melanistic ones are totally black on top, and they're really, really cool. But these are the kind of images that we're looking for. So you can see real big variation in terms of the classic T shape, like the thickness, and then those white shoulder markings, the shadings within them. So we're really dialing in on all those details. And the point of that is if we get a really good dorsal ID and we don't get a ventral ID or vice versa, then when we find other animals, we can just kind of match them up and hopefully it will speed up the process. Okay, and here's some more of our data that we've been compiling. So on the left-hand side there, this is heavily pregnant females. We've got courtship and then mating scars. And so for females, we'll always look for mating scars, and that's an indication that the female is sexually mature and she's been pregnant. And it's part of the process of the mating behavior. Like the male actually causes that mark from his teeth, which I can act out for you at a later date. But yeah, this is really good for us. And that top really bulgy photo of that female, she's in the really late stages of pregnancy. When they have the bulge on the back as well as underneath, it's all because the baby, when they're just before they're born, their fins are actually folded over their head like a little burrito. And the same with like human pregnancy, the fetus moves down into that lower abdomen. So again, just kind of talking about, hey, are they giving birth here? This is really good evidence to show that, she was probably going to give birth within, a matter of weeks, which is really, really cool. Injuries and type and source. So with this one, we've just shown human, so anthropogenic injuries to manta, and a lot of these have been photographed in the Gulf. So that top one, that the pectoral fin is paralyzed, so it's just kind of dripping, so you can't see it from that side. We get a lot with fishing line. You can see like a gaming lure as well, and then even like amputation. That top right, where you see that those 2 mantas and that kind of white thing, that is a pair of courting mantas, and then the female who's being followed by the male has a really big, it looks like a prop, like has just cut through the top of her wing. So that's something else that we're joining the dots on. We know that when they're in the Gulf, they spend most of their time at the surface. The main behaviors that they're doing in the Gulf are feeding and courtship, and in between that, they're resting. All of that's done within the top 5 meters, so it makes them extremely vulnerable to ship strike and props and all kinds of stuff. So again, that's the side of building these bigger pictures. Okie dokies. So another way that we can really speed our knowledge up super, super quick in terms of how Manta are using our marine environment is through satellite tagging. And this just gives us assurance, like the tags that we use, and we get 100% accurate GPS. We can get, so we know exactly like when the tag pops the surface, it signals to the satellite, and then we know that exactly that manta was at that point, which is super, super useful. And then we get all the lovely environmental variables attached to that, and then all the diving behavior as well. So this is some work that one of our master's students did last year. So this just shows you kind of how horizontal and vertical dive data looks. So track data and dive data. So each of those dots, you'll see a different tag number, and that represents a different animal and how they've moved around. And then for two of those tags, we have the dive profiles. So as I was just saying, it's super clear that they spend most of their time within the top 5 meters, but irrespective of where they are, they do like to dive down to the bottom occasionally, suss it out, and then come back up. So that the top one, you can see that one's kind of stayed in relatively shallow water and would do dives around kind of 70, then down to 100, and then the green one, they went all the way down to the Bear Plenty and to Tuhua. They did some deeper diving off that shelf. Another key thing about this is you can see that these animals are coming right into the inner Gulf as well, which again, we need to know about, and so we can assess the threats that this population is exposed to. Here's a cute little animation of these mantas like doing their thing. One of the key questions, like originally, was manta found in the Gulf, are they the same population that you find down in the Bear Plenty? And so, satellite tagging is just an awesome way of just clearing up confusion. And we know that the mantas on the East Coast anyway, they're all part of the same crew, and they just know where to go in terms of food. And so they'll gorge in some area, and then they'll move to another area and feed, and then essentially come back. This is some new data. So you can see all of the tags there, all the different numbers on the right-hand side. And again, each different color represents the movement of a manta. The only difference is it doesn't have a line connecting the two. But I just really want to show you guys the orange one that's coming right into the back of Tiri Tiri, and the turquoise one as well, like in terms of where you operate. So one of the biggest preconceptions when we started was that, hey, they're just an offshore species. We rarely see them. And then 2 years later, we found them extensively between Hauturu and Aote and the Mokihinos, which was fine because there wasn't heaps and heaps of boat traffic. But now we can see that they're in some really key areas right in the middle of those shipping lanes and are very exposed. These are just, this is just a snapshot of the population. We know that we do get hundreds of manta through these areas. So it just shows you how close they're coming in. So that's kind of localized movements. And then also through satellite tagging, we've been able to confirm that these are true ocean wanderers. Emmy's our world famous manta. And through combining photo ID and satellite tagging, we were able to confirm that we have return migration from New Zealand to Fiji and back again. So Emmy was the first manta I tagged through our project in 2019. And then we managed to track her all the way to southern Fiji in the Lau group. And then in 2022, we got her ID again in the Hauraki Gulf. So just that little bit of mahi just confirmed a whole heap of stuff for us. And this is new data. So we've tagged 35 animals so far in terms of the project. So Manta Watch held a permit to tag 30 over 3 years. So we've just finished that permit now. Out of the 36, 23 animals left the New Zealand shelf and exited the exclusive economic zone. So in terms of conservation, this is a really clear migratory corridor that we've been able to show. And it's not just manta that use this area. A lot of larger shark species use it also. Seabirds use it, and a lot of cetaceans as well. The really concerning thing for all of us in that regard is this is high seas fisheries area. All the protections that we have for these species in our waters leave the animals as soon as they leave our economic zone. So a massive part of our mahi moving forward is really lobbying to get protections for this area, not just for manta, but for all animals that use this huge highway. And just to summarize how cool our mantas are, we're casually breaking all the world records that we knew were possible for this species. So yeah, the furthest traveled, the deepest dived, and as a consequence of deep diving, we now know that they can handle really low temperature water, so under 4 degrees for a short amount of time. Cool. And so I've been really busy over the down season, so winter. And so we've been using all of this lovely data. And I'm really excited to share that we did several ISRA submissions. So ISRA is an important shark and ray area. So this isn't a marine protected area, but it's basically an acknowledgement of the significance of this area for a certain species. And I'm so stoked to announce that, we've managed to get the Hauraki Gulf officially approved as an important area for oceanic manta, specifically for foraging. So that dashed line is the buffer. But yeah, we've got over 6,000 square kilometers for oceanic manta. We also applied for our beautiful little mini mantas, the spine-tailed devil rays, and we managed to get just over 2,000 square kilometers for feeding for those guys out the back. So out the back of the Poor Knights all the way through to Cape Rep. And then as of last week, this is one that I'm really, really just so proud of. We managed to get the Covell Ridge approved. So this is the migratory corridor that I mentioned mere seconds ago. And so this is the first step to marine protection. We can use, because through the submission process, it's really high-end, independently reviewed from other scientists and specialists. And so, yeah, we're just so stoked that we had the data available. So currently it's a classification of a movement area, and the two animals that we have the most data on at the moment are oceanic manta and shortfin mako, but this will be added to as more and more data present. So yeah, as it's been sweet this winter. We've managed to secure 445,000 square kilometers of significant area for manta and devil ray so far. So we're pretty stoked. Finishing off, just talking about our beautiful citizen science network. We're coming into manta season now. So I guess what I wanted to say is that all of that data that you've just seen, and that's just a big conservation win for us. As citizen scientists, you massively contributed to that. That's all our sightings data. It enabled us to find manta as well. And so we're just wanting to keep going with this. We're just at the beginning. So we have two beautiful resources here. We have our sightings and data collection guide, please spread it around. We will have digital and hard copies available soon. And then really important, a best practice guide as well. We're wanting people to collect data, but we're wanting them to do it safely and respectfully for everybody involved. We're also trying to make collecting data easy. And so this is the first look of our sightings app. It's going to be a little bit different from this, but basically we're going to try and take all the hard work out of collecting data for the project, out of the equation, and you'll be able to upload high resolution original imagery and footage straight into a cloud that we can then use. So yeah, that's hopefully going to launch soon. So I'll keep you guys looped. And yeah, finally, just wanted to say thank you for your support. As we were saying before, we can't do any of it on our own. It's all about collaboration and working together. And we want to use Manta to protect our beautiful ocean spaces. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Livia. That's awesome. Congratulations on the
Thank
ISROs.
you.
That's awesome. Like, it must be so good for you to see results like that coming out of all of your hard work, all of your mahi. So that's awesome. And it sounds like you've got like a good network with all of that data coming in from the Citizen Science Network as well. That's really cool.
Yeah, yeah. It's I reckon we're gleaning maybe 5 to 10%. So yeah, this year we're wanting to just build that up, and I think the app will really help there. But yeah, so stoked. And particularly with the Gulf and the Marine Protection Bill, and it's just we're really happy to be able to provide the extra lens. Just to show how special like this this body of water is and how we really need to protect it.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Do you have any tips for us that might be useful to the team for spotting? Like, it's obviously easiest when there's calm water and we don't have any wind. So I don't know
Yeah.
if you have any tips aside from what we might already know for finding manta.
Yeah. So absolutely, the conditions play a massive role. They do like to hide in plain sight. I've had it where mantas are feeding without breaking the surface, and they would be completely invisible if it wasn't dead calm. I'd say particularly in the Gulf, like the like bio indicators. So like if you see workups that are centered around krill. So those the smaller seabirds, so fairy prions, flittering shearwaters. If you see Bryde's whales lunge feeding at the surface, there's a really good chance that you'll have manta kind of in the mix with that too. They don't like too much extra activity in terms of feeding animals, but you might get a few cheeky ones to the side, trying to avoid the greedy / grumpy brood as well.
Yeah.
uh, but yeah, so with your food webs of say like your gannets and your common dolphins, they're feeding on like the larger bait fish. So you're unlikely to see manta in the mix with those guys. But anything where, yeah, anything kind of krill derived would be the way to go. And then yeah, if you do spot, because quite often manta will know where krill are before anything else does. So if you do come across a big patch of krill, it might be worth just like, hovering around for a moment, and seeing what happens. That's something that I've done before. Literally plonked myself in the middle of krill. I don't necessarily recommend it for everybody. It's a bit scary sometimes, but yeah. And then a manta came right through, so that was really cool. But yeah, this time of year, so December through till February is like, yeah, peak time. And they are following the food, so I'd say, yeah, January, February, they'll be coming right into your survey areas. Another thing with manta is that they're really predictable if you do come across like a big chunk of food because it's all The variables that bring that krill to the surface, it's tidal. And then there's also like some lunar stuff happening as well. So basically for like 3 to 4 days, those conditions are going to be really similar. So if you see manta feeding, say, near anchorite, for example, within like 45 meters one day in the afternoon, then you've got a really strong chance of seeing them the next few days in that kind of area. Um, so yeah, I think, yeah, I'd say those are my top tips.
Awesome. Thank you. And you said that your tagging permit just finished. Are you applying or are you getting another one to gather more data via that means or not?
Doc have a permit that we're going to be using. So Mark, he's on that permit. And so we are going to do a little bit more with Manta this year, but a big focus for us will be spine-tailed devil rays because they're almost, well, yeah, we know hardly anything compared to Manta now. We've got a really strong case for Manta. Um, and so yeah, we are going to be targeting spinies a little bit more. But then also the Manta that we do tag, we're going to be looking at putting tags on that just really help learn more about that migration pathway. In terms of mantas feeding in the Gulf, we know we get lots of them here now, so it's kind of doing the day-to-day of getting more and more data, more and more IDs. But in terms of tagging more here, we really want to just get all the information together, analyze it, and publish it so that we know where the gaps are. So then when we come to apply for, say, another tagging or potentially do genetics, we'll have some really clear ideas of the questions that we want answering. So yeah, there's a mini pause on tagging Manta, but yeah, the IDs and all the demographic stuff, like that's insanely important, and that's what, yeah, all projects around the world, that's your bread and butter. Like that's your foundation for your population. Other key things that we'll be doing this year are trying to find nursery areas and cleaning stations, both of which, if we find them, then they're really good grounds for site-specific protections. So again, just yeah, trying to yeah get everything in a more secure space.
Awesome. Is your ID catalog public? Like, do you share that?
It will be. One of our big challenges is capacity and the lack of, which I'm currently trying to build on. But yeah, by the end of this month, hopefully, we'll have our catalog on our website, and then also we'll have it available through our social channels as well. Because yeah, it's really important. With all of this knowledge, I want it to be as public and open source as possible, so people can get behind it. So yeah, short, well, long answer, but yes, it will be available soon.
Yeah, that's awesome. We'd love to put a copy on the boat so as people, can see that there's an opportunity to see them and what work is going on. And that's a nice way to do it with that visual information because we've got like Brutus and common catalogues.
Yeah, we have some new resources coming out soon as well. So we'll make sure that you guys get some copies for the boat.
Awesome. Photos are quite hard to get, I guess, from when you're low down, like you showed that you're getting in the water some of the time to try and get those ID shots. Do you have any tips for the crew on trying to take photos? They do it with the cetacean photos that they take anyway, and we often use burst mode and sports mode to try and just, take a bunch in a row and hope that you get something. But I don't know if you have any advice that might be particularly useful for trying to get manta shots for the areas that you need.
Yeah, I'd say with your guys' setup, so mantas aren't worried about bigger vessels, like the noises, the engines don't bother them. So in terms of like the camera gear that you have available, if you can be just in neutral as close to a feeding manta ray as possible, so you're essentially looking down at it, and then use your burst mode, then we might be able to get some IDs that way. But yeah, like as long as the mantas aren't changing their behavior, it means that we're not negatively impacting them in any way. And so, particularly, yeah, if you have manta just somersault feeding right next to the boat, or just edging over and then being in neutral, and then them feeding and letting them come closer to the boat, that's a really good opportunity to get photos from that above perspective.
Mm.
Because yeah,
Would you?
it's really sorry. And I was just going to say it's really hard without a drone or say a pole cam or something. But I know your vessel's really high. But yeah, pole cam with GoPro as well. It would also be really
That was what
helpful.
I was just going to say as
Mm.
well. Would you advise, or is it worthwhile trying to put a GoPro on a pole in the water? I guess it depends on the visibility and how close we are. But is that worth a try if we're viewing?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's incredible what you can get off pole cams. Yeah, so yeah, if you've got a big enough pole, and then yeah, if you can get quite close to them, have somebody taking photos from the top, and then have like the pole cam combo, yeah, I think that would be incredible. And then just with the GoPro, just make sure it's tilted up a little bit, and then yeah, you could get some really cool stuff.
Oh, we'll give it a whirl.
Yeah, no, that would be epic. With our short film, yeah, our skipper Lily, she got some insane stuff just from Polcam. Like it, yeah, I massively rate it for like the larger vessels. Mm.
Cool. I'm maybe going to let anybody else ask questions if they have any.
No one else has any questions. Mm.
How do you tell if they're pregnant? Are you just looking at how swollen they are, bulge?
It's quite hard because mantas do gorge, like they can have food babies as well. So you can't really tell until so the gestation is like 12 and a half months. And so those last, say like that last 6 months, it really starts showing. Um, so yeah, like we do get there's like a thickness of the abdomen. Like if you're looking at them from the drone, sometimes you can literally see like their massive belly. But that's when pole cam and getting in the water at that level, and looking directly at them from behind, you can kind of see the whole thing. But yeah, mainly if we see mating scars and then they look quite bulgy, they're pregnant. Um, and then yeah, when you get that dorsal kind of it, I've seen a couple in the Gulf that were literally about to pop, and they just look so uncomfortable, and yeah, they just look like they swallowed this massive ball. It's very similar to humans. Like they just want that thing out as soon as possible. Mm.
Hi, Lydia. I've got a question. The tags that you have used, are they permanent or how long do they last? And next question, any of the ones that went to Fiji, would you expect those tags to be back on when they come back into New Zealand waters?
Mm. So depending on the type of tag, so we use two different tags, and then we have a pre-programmed deployment. So for the splash tags that we use to get that high resolution data in the Gulf, we generally have a deployment period of around 4 months, and that's with the intention of getting really high tech data for that short amount of time and then retrieving the tag. So the way that the tag works is it will release buckets of data once it's popped off and it's on the surface, and it will relay that information to the satellites, and then we get that. However, if we get the whole tag, we can download all of that data, and we get just yeah the whole shaboodle. In terms of the migratory stuff, we generally use mini pats, and these are archival tags, so their duration can be up to a year. Um, and the intention there is that we get that return migration. We've managed to get one, and that's something that we'll be focusing on again this year. And so the manta that we did that with is called Rocky, and then we were able to track her through photo ID and satellite tag over 3 seasons. So that second season she got tagged with a mini pat, And then she didn't actually go to the Pacific Islands. She went over the Colville Ridge really far east and then came back round. And then her tag actually popped off out the back of Kauai Island. I think it was early December 2 years ago. And so we were able to get that tag, and that's how we got all of that information. So to answer your question, we try to retrieve them because then it's in our best interest to do so. If we aren't able to retrieve them, then the tag will release as much information before it runs out of battery. And then we have contact details on the tags as well. And then it's quite often that tags will be sent back to the project, years after when they're washed up on some sort of desert island and whatnot. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, that's cool. Thank you.
Brilliant. But yeah, so there's some thinking around it. So this year we're really wanting to, because with that migratory pathway, it's like with all large elasmobranchs, like they generally have their own vibe in which way they want to go. So there's some variation. And so just really nutting that through, and then again that will build more evidence for getting those protections in the high seas.
Do you have any tag data that actually shows the animals staying in New Zealand for the whole year, like over winter?
Not yet. So yeah, the main thing with that is I think if we do have year-round residency, then it might be our younger. So when the babies are born, it would make sense for them to stay relatively close as opposed to making such a huge migration. And because we do have whales, we have resident whale populations, particularly in the Gulf and then in other areas. We know that there's significant food here throughout the year. It just isn't necessarily on the surface all the time. So yeah, I think the one way that we'd be able to find out is if we find nursery areas or we are able to tag a really young manta ray. So when they're born, they're just under 2 meters. We have had anecdotal reports of people seeing really small manta in the Gulf. I've yet to see them. We've had some juveniles that are around 3 meters, but we haven't seen any that are like obviously just born. So yeah, to be continued.
Yeah, cool. Anyone else? Any questions for Lydia? Oh.
Hi, Lydia.
I just can't wait to start finding them. Sorry. You go.
Yeah.
Am I coming through?
Yes, Brittany, we can
yes,
hear you.
cool.
Go ahead.
Sorry, just on my lengthy journey to work. I'm wondering, what is your favorite fun fact about manta, Lydia?
Oh. I think my favorite fun fact is that they're the only fish to pass the mirror test, so they're self-aware. And then if you do, so yeah, they've just got a really higher, I mean, they're really intelligent animals, and I mean, intelligence is a human construct for sure, but you do get those amazing stories, and particularly colleagues in Indonesia, where you'll get a particular manta like honing in on a particular human because they know them, and then they did all these cool tests where they changed the wetsuit, changed the color of the mask, and everything, but they'd still find that one human. And then it wasn't until they put a reflective, so they know them from their eyes, which was quite crazy. And it was only when they put a mask on with a reflective surface that the manta kind of looked at them and was like, "Oh, I kind of think it's you, but I'm not that sure." So it's just like little nuggets like that. But yeah, they're just really, really intelligent and know what's going on.
That's my new favorite fact. Love it.
But yeah, Joe, like what were you saying? Yes, I can't wait to find them as well. And then yeah, as I was saying,
Yeah,
just saying
that's
this
all I was going to
before.
say. I can't
Oh
wait
no,
till
so
the start of the season. It should be now, shouldn't it?
it is now. It's and that's the thing. They're here. It's I'm pretty sure they are here. We've got so much food, and yeah, it's just a case of the timing. I think that's one of the key things that we really try and communicate. It's like we only have understanding when they're in the surface waters, those top 2 meters. If we're not seeing them, it doesn't mean that they're not here. It's all about the reasons for them to come up. And as I was saying, I was surveying yesterday in the evening, and yeah, there's just so much krill around. So, and nothing was feeding on it. So yeah, it's imminent, I'd say. Maybe today. Oh my goodness. You guys might get on the scoreboard. I'm always interested to see if like I'll find them first or if someone else will. And then
Game
if I
on.
don't, yeah, if I don't find them first, I get a little bit sad. But I'm a slow burn. I'm consistent, so hopefully I'll yeah. I won last year. I want to try and win this year as well, but we'll see. But I'd be very pleased if you guys do.
It's been
Okay.
pretty windy a lot, so that makes it a bit tricky, but
I
hopefully it'll
know.
calm down.
Yeah, that's the thing. Hey, like the Gulf is just such a wind tunnel. But yeah, that's why having a big boat high up is a big draw card. So you got a sweet chance. And then yeah, just that ability of just being able to go out, every day. It's just it's so valuable.
Well,
Right.
thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. I hope you guys enjoyed it and got some stuff out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you've got everyone excited too. So,
Oh, good. Excellent. All right. Well, yeah, thanks so much. And yeah, I'll get those resources over to you soon.
yeah, that'll be great. And then we'll talk soon, Lydia. Thank you.
Thank you so much and have a beautiful day on the water, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See ya.
Take care.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.